Hello, and welcome back to our third session of today's Leader Talk Personalized Learning Experiences, sponsored by Adobe, Whatfix, Acorn, InfoPro Learning, and Allego. So I'm Liz Fay, again here, events marketing specialist at Training Industry, and I'm thrilled to have you with us here today. Again, before we get started though, I would like to quickly go over a few housekeeping items so you can interact with our speaker and get the most out of today's program. So as Justin has mentioned, throughout today's event, please feel free to use that chat window, interact with him with any comments as well as questions. And we will be addressing those questions at the end of the session, but keep plugging them away. And additionally, at your end of your time here with us, you will notice a short evaluation survey popped open another tab in your browser, and we would appreciate your thoughts on today's event. And all of our sessions are being recorded and archived on trainingindustry.com, and you will receive a follow-up email from us that will include the link to the on-demand program for you to share with your team. If this is your first Training Industry event, we would love to welcome you. We exist to make connections among learning and development professionals, and we offer tons of resources to support your role in L&D, like live events like today's Leader Talk, as well as through articles on our website, our magazine, conferences, research reports, podcasts, and membership. We would also love to hear about what you've learned from today's session on social media, so please follow us on your favorite platform so we can continue the conversation. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce you to our third speaker of the day. Justin Seeley is a highly experienced learning and development professional with over 2 decades of online learning and graphic design expertise. And currently, Justin is the e-learning evangelist at Adobe, where his comprehensive knowledge of Adobe products and learning design empower him to passionately inspire and educate customers about Adobe's dynamic e-learning suite. And with that, Justin, take it away.
Right. Thanks, Liz. Thanks, everybody. Welcome to the session. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Just do desktop. There we go. Okay. And get into it. So hopefully everybody can see my screen. Liz, we're good?
Looks great.
All right. Fantastic. All right. So, hey, everybody, welcome and thanks for being here today. I'm really excited to walk you through this session. We're going to be talking about personalized learning, but not just in a theoretical sense. We're going to break down a practical framework that you can use to turn learner curiosity into real engagement, whether you're building onboarding journeys, reskilling programs, or leadership development tracks, doesn't matter. This framework that we're going to explore today is called Loop, L-O-O-P. And it's designed to help you listen to your learners, observe their behavior, offer the right content at the right time, and personalize the experience as they grow. So again, my name is Justin Seeley. I am the learning evangelist for Adobe Learning Manager at Adobe. And in my role, I get to work closely with a lot of learning teams, learning designers, and platform administrators across all different types of industries. And one of the most common questions that I hear is, how do we create learning experiences that feel personalized without creating a ton of manual work for me? And this is the session that I attempt to answer that question. So we're going to keep things interactive. I've got a few different reflection prompts. I've also got a poll at the end, and we're going to do some Q&A. So feel free to, again, to drop your comments in that chat as we go. Here's a brief look at the agenda. We're going to start off with why personalization matters. Then we're going to go into the loop framework. I'm going to explain what each facet means, how you can use it, and then we're going to put that into practice inside your org. Finally, we'll go over some key takeaways, some next steps, things like that, and finally, we'll cap it off with Q&A. So let's start by acknowledging a difficult truth that I think many of us face, and that's that most of the content that we deliver is oftentimes not prioritized. It may be in some cases even ignored, not because it isn't good and not because it's not well designed, but it simply doesn't feel relevant to the learner. It feels like another box they have to check, another task they have assigned to them. And, learners are already really overwhelmed. They're flooded with emails, meetings, messages, other platforms. And when they finally do sit down to learn, the experience often feels generic. And here's the thing. Learning that feels generic doesn't get prioritized because when people don't see themselves in the content, when it doesn't reflect their goals, their interests, or their day-to-day reality, they disconnect, they tune out, they change the channel in essence. Engagement isn't about pushing harder on your learners, it's about connecting deeper with the learners. And this is where personalization comes into play. And true personalization in learning is not just about, using a mail merge to insert somebody's name in a form or on a slide. It's about designing with empathy, using data and timing to make the learners feel seen and supported at every step. Now, we know at Adobe from our research and from our own experience that when people feel like learning was built for them, they lean in, they explore, they self-enroll, they engage because it feels like their learning journey, not just the company's training requirement. And personalization nowadays, with all the tools and tech that we have, it's not a nice to have anymore. It's just expected. And if you think about the other digital experiences that learners interact with on a daily basis, like let's take Spotify or Netflix as an example. Both of those things don't like guess as to what you want to do every time you launch the app. No, they have tons of data points. They have behaviors that they track. They have all kinds of things so that they know, oh, Justin has listened to this song 5 times in a row. He probably likes this artist. Let's sign him up for more. Oh, he's binged watched 152 episodes of this show. Let's serve him up some more true crime drama. And it just learns as you go, right? They observe your behavior, they serve up recommendations accordingly, and it makes it feel like it's tailored just for you. And learners are bringing those expectations into your LMS, whether you know it or not. So the big shift needs to be that we can no longer just build and deliver content. We have to build learning systems that listen to and respond to our learners. And that means we need to move on from this one size fits all approach, and we need to move towards one that adapts to the learner's needs, their interests, and even their behaviors. And that's where this loop framework comes in, a model that you can use to start creating these kinds of personalized experiences right now with whatever platform or tools that you might be using. Now, let's pause here for just a second. For years, we've treated learning like it should scale the same way software does, one version for everybody, pushed out at the same time to every person at every level. But as we know, learners aren't identical. Their roles are different, their goals are different, their motivation, their time, their confidence level, all of it's different. So, this idea that the future of learning isn't one size fits all, it's really about shifting our focus. It's not about designing for the average learner anymore. It's about designing for the individual. One size fits you means we create systems that recognize who you are, what you care about, and where you're going, and we adjust accordingly. And that's the heart of personalized learning. And that's the reason we need a framework like this. So, one other thing that I want to do before we jump into the framework is I want to bust a myth really quick. So, I'm going to pause for a second here to clear up one of the biggest misconceptions that I hear every day in the conversations that I have when I'm going to events or speaking at webinars like this. And people think you need a team of data scientists and an AI budget the size of a small country to start observing learner behavior in a meaningful way. And that's just not true. Yes, advanced platforms can do a lot, but you don't need complex systems. You already have useful signals hiding in plain sight, whether you know it or not. Things like completion times, search terms, repeat views. These are all forms of feedback. They're not just numbers, they're conversations that are happening silently in your LMS every day. And the question is, are you listening? So I want you to start simple. Look at where learners drop off. What content do they come back to? What topics are they searching for but not enrolling in? You don't need AI to start observing. You just need curiosity and a willingness to let behavior guide your design. And that's what we're going to do in this framework. So LOOP stands for listen, observe, offer, and personalize. So listen, get to know your learners. Observe, read between the clicks. Offer, deliver timely and relevant content. And then personalize, close the loop, build the system. So let's dive into each one of these individually. So first up is listen. And I want to be clear here. This isn't about listening to your stakeholders. I know that a lot of us get bogged down by stakeholder requirements, and sometimes that can be big and scary, but this is about listening to the learners themselves. And that's not always easy because learners don't always say what they need. They show it, but before we get to the behavior, we start with the intent, the stated goals, interests, and motivations that learners bring with them to your platform. Too often in L&D, we make assumptions about what people need based on job title, compliance requirements, etc. But that's not personalization. That's categorization. True listening is about treating the learner like a whole person, someone with a unique role, yes, but also with personal goals, gaps in knowledge, and trajectory they care about. And those things can change over time. So, what does it look like to really listen? When I say listening, I don't just mean having a manager ask, what do you want to learn? That might be part of it, but the real magic happens when we combine self-reflection and data collection. It's about creating opportunities for the learner to share what matters to them and then capturing that input in a structured way. Think of this as a feedback loop starter. We prompt learners to reflect, we capture their aspirations, confidence levels, content preferences, and we actually use that information to guide what happens next. A great example of this is actually one of our customers at Adobe. Microsoft has this website called the Microsoft Expert Zone, and you can go there, expertzone.microsoft.com. One of the first things that you do after you sign up for an account is you tell them what you want to learn. So they have all kinds of things like Xbox, Microsoft 365, all of these different things. You mark that when you first get in there, and that automatically generates your learning environment. Everything on that homepage is fully customized to what you want to learn. And so what you're seeing here is kind of an example of like what a modern LMS interface where listening happens by design might look like. So it might be something as simple as an onboarding survey, like that Microsoft example. Maybe it's a confidence check. Either way, the system is actively collecting input, not just tracking completions, but it's initiating a conversation between the system and the learner. And this is the first step in building trust, because when somebody comes into a system like this, that it feels like the system is listening, they're going to stay more actively engaged because they want to see, are you really going to serve up what I'm telling you I'm interested in? That was the first thing that I thought when I signed up for the Microsoft example. I was like, okay, I'm into Xbox. I use Office all the time. All right. And when I got in there, I was actually kind of blown away by how tailored all of the recommendations were that came up on my screen. It's actually more relevant than, many of the streaming platforms and stuff like I was talking about earlier. So I think that is something that we really have to take into account. We have to initiate that conversation, and we have to start collecting those signals from our learners. And as we start to receive their signals, we go to the second step in the loop. And this is the observe step. This is where we shift from what learners say to what they're actually doing. And if you've ever looked at LMS analytics and wondered like how to make heads or tails of it, this is where that data starts to come alive. So observation is all about decoding curiosity. Learners might not always tell you what they're interested in, but they do leave behind a trail of signals: clicks, searches, repeat visits, time spent on certain content, early drop-offs, video rewatches, etc. It's your learners telling you this is interesting or I don't care about this. The key is to treat these behaviors not just as passive analytics, but as active input, as a back and forth conversation. When somebody searches for a topic but doesn't enroll in anything, that's not a missed conversion, that's a gap in your content, or possibly a problem with how it's surfaced. When someone returns to a resource multiple times, it might mean the content is valuable or that they didn't quite get what they needed the first time. Modern learning programs, including Adobe Learning Manager, which is the product that I evangelize for, are built to capture these kinds of signals. But collecting data is not the same as acting on it. Most organizations are sitting on a mountain of behavioral data that they could use to drive smarter learning, but instead it ends up being buried in dashboards or put into end of quarter reports and pretty much just forgotten. So, how do we shift from observing to actually learning from the observation? Well, we start by identifying which signals matter most to your learning goals. If you're focused on driving product adoption, look at time spent in feature specific content. If you're trying to improve onboarding, look at where people drop off and where they seek extra help. And don't overcomplicate it. You don't need an AI team to start observing. You need patterns, you need curiosity, and you need a system in place to adjust your learning strategy based on what you see. It's a bridge between listening and action, and it allows you to move from assumption to evidence much faster. So here's an example. This is a screenshot of the group success dashboard that's built into Adobe Learning Manager. It gives admins and learning leaders real-time visibility into how teams are progressing through their learning paths. You can see everything from completion rates to time-stamped activity, and even filter by learner, group, or course. And if someone's not logging in, or they're stuck at 50%, or they're revisiting the same topic, you can spot it and you can respond early before it becomes a blocker for their growth. You're not just observing course completions here, you're observing behavior patterns. That's the nuance that I want you to see in tools like this. This helps you surface signals like which learners are breezing through and who's stalling out, and whether certain courses consistently cause friction. If your top performers keep returning to specific topics, or maybe those are high value, maybe that's worth doubling down on. But when you observe with purpose, you're not just managing your learning, you're starting to manage the momentum. And that insight sets you up for the next phase of the loop, which is offer, because now you know what the learners need and when. So once you know what they need and once you know when they need it, it's time to start offering them something. And so that next step in the framework is offer. This is where personalization really starts to take shape because it's the point where the learner receives something from us. Up till now, we've been taking knowledge from them. We've been taking data from them. And now it's time for us to offer up our response. So timing and relevance here are the most essential things. A great piece of content offered at the wrong time is nothing but noise. A perfect resource buried in the catalog is basically invisible. When we talk about offering in the context of personalized learning, we're talking about surfacing the right thing at the right time in the right way based on everything we've seen and heard so far. Now, this could be a simple follow-up course recommendation after somebody completes a module. It could be a nudge that says, hey, other people in your role are taking a look at this. It could be a learning plan triggered by a promotion, a role change, or a completion of a certification. The key is this: the offer should feel like it belongs to the learner, not the company. It should feel useful, not forced. It should be personalized and not prescribed. So here's an example of this. And this is where technology can really help. So ALM, Adobe Learning Manager, for example, uses the AI-powered recommendation engines to automate this process at scale based on what the learner does, what they click on, what they finish, and what they ignore, and they explicitly tell us can they can offer curated suggestions. So learners like you also completed X, or because you're building skills in this area, we recommend X. Based on your role and activity, here's what's next. So if you take a look at this screenshot here, we've got recommendations based on your interest there at the top. So when you go into Adobe Learning Manager, there's a recommendations section you can go to. You can tell the system, like, I am interested in these products, I'm interested in these roles, or I want to build these skills. You can do all three of those things. And then it will start to use its internal AI to start surfacing all of these personalized recommendations that wind up on your homepage. Then at the bottom, you'll see something called trending in your network. Think of this like what's hot on Netflix, right? So we constantly look at the data points from your peers, people who are in your same learning group, people who are in your same role. What are they taking? What are they completing? What are they dropping off of? That kind of thing. And we're using that to refine that constantly on the learner homepage. So it's always serving up something that feels relevant, motivating, and most of all, it feels natural. The last step in the loop is that we want to personalize. And this is where it all comes together, where we commit to making learning an ongoing, evolving experience instead of a one-time event. A lot of organizations treat personalization like a setup step. They assign a role-based path, or they tag a few recommended courses and they call it personalized. But the truth is, real personalization happens over time. It adapts, it responds, it grows with the learner. And this is where systems need to move beyond just recommending something once and start recognizing when a learner needs have changed. So maybe they moved into a new role. Maybe they've completed a key program and are ready for the next challenge. Maybe they've shown interest in a topic and that wasn't part of their original path. Adobe Learning Manager helps support this kind of responsiveness through something called learning plans. And many systems do things like this as well. These are rule-based automations that assign training based on specific events or milestones in a learner's journey. And that's just one of the ways that you can customize or personalize the journey. So for instance, if somebody's hired into a certain department, they could automatically be enrolled in a new onboarding plan for that particular department. If they complete a certification, you could queue up the next level course that goes to, level 2. Many times you have a lot of roles that are segmented by numerical separators, like, IT specialist 1, IT specialist 2. So once they've completed 1, go ahead and start proactively serving up number 2. If their job role changes, their training can change with it, and it absolutely should. Because if you move from being like a help desk representative to someone who's like deeper in the IT and tech space, you shouldn't be seeing how to talk to customers or something like that, right? You should be seeing things that are relevant to your role at all times. The real benefit here isn't just the automation of it all, even though that's helpful, especially for LMS admins. It's that learning experience. It starts to feel like it's like it's coming alive, like it's something that is able to adapt and move in real time. The system notices what's happening and responds accordingly. It keeps learners on a path that actually reflects where they are and where they're going, not just where they started. And I think that's something that we've had problems with for a very long time in learning is that we start off with something. We're very good at creating what I like to call the on ramp, and we're kind of bad at creating the highways, the thing that gets them from point A to point B. We're very good at getting them up and getting them up to speed, but we can't quite get them all the way to where they want to go. Oftentimes, in our learner surveys that we put out there, one of the biggest gripes that people have is that the learning just doesn't feel relevant. It doesn't feel like it's helping me achieve the goals that I've communicated to my manager. Well, if we don't integrate those types of questions and feedback loops into our systems, the systems have no way to adjust to that stuff on the fly. And beyond automation, personalization also means choice. We're letting the learners save content, build playlists, explore topics outside their assigned path. And these are all ways that we can make the experience feel more relevant and more human and more fun. There's nothing, I think that's another misconception. Like, there's nothing wrong with making learning enjoyable. I've often said that, when I was building big programs, I've worked at a lot of different places building customer onboarding programs. And I always said, like, I want this to be a destination that somebody comes back to on a daily basis because they're really interested in the next thing that's coming. That's very hard to do. But if you remember, and I don't know, I'm going to date myself here a little bit, and maybe this could just be an informal poll if you want to stick some stuff in the chat right now. How many people remember the Yahoo homepage from like the 90s and 2000s? You guys know what that is? The personalized Yahoo homepage. I see responses coming in. Yeah, everybody. Okay, yeah, everybody remembers this. Okay, so the Yahoo homepage, you could customize that with anything you wanted, right? You could have weather, local news. They had social feeds baked into that, shopping recommendations. There was tons of ways that they customized that Yahoo homepage. That's ultimately what I've always wanted to build for a customer learning portal. Somewhere that, assume this is a tool that they use every day. And an LMS for a learning development professional, we use LMSs almost every day, right? So make the LMS something that I want to come back to every single day to check on something. And so whether that's making the content that's on the homepage relevant to the administrator or to the learner or to a manager or whomever, that's a very important thing that we need to get right. And I think that's something that we can do with all of these modern systems that we have. So, when learners feel like the system is paying attention and when they're given room to explore things on their own terms and, pin different things or save playlist or curate their own learning path, they stay curious. And that's what we're really going after at the end of the day. We want learners to remain curious, to remain interested and engaged, and to keep coming back without us having to pepper them with constant pings of, your 7 days until this compliance training, until we send something to your manager telling you you're in trouble. Like, we've got to get away from that and start creating experiences that make people want to come back for more. So personalization isn't about, just creating that one perfect path. It's about building a system that is able to listen and learn and play new games on the fly, just like a good coach or a mentor would be able to do. So what you're looking at here, this is kind of a simulation of what I'm talking about. So let's assume that this learner has just been promoted. And in that promotion, they've been moved from one group to another inside an LMS. So they've been moved from employees to managers, for example, right? And the system has automatically enrolled them in a new learning plan tailored to their evolving role. This kind of automation may seem small, but the impact is significant because imagine this, if you were logging into this system and the system automatically kind of darkens out and the thing comes up and it's like new learning path enrolled. Due to your recent promotion, you've been automatically enrolled in a new learning plan. What would be even better if that said, hey, congrats on the promotion. Here's some things to help you get started in the role. So even customizing that to the degree to make it feel like a congratulatory thing. It says to the learner, we see you, not just as a static user in the system, but as a dynamic individual whose learning needs evolve with their career. And because this enrollment happens behind the scenes, triggered by a promotion event, a profile update, there's no friction. There's no request forms. There's no chasing down the L&D people to add you to a specific course for manager compliance or anything like that. The content finds the learner and it finds them at the right moment. So assume that this is triggered the first Monday after any promotion is put into place or after any user is put into a certain group. These are all things that are possible with modern learning technologies, and we should be taking advantage of them because that's the true power of personalization. It scales support without sacrificing relevance. Learners stay engaged because the experience feels responsive, not rigid, and admins gain time and insight because the system is working with them and not waiting for them. So, as we cruise to the last part of this, I want to pose a challenge to you. So, before we wrap up with the last phase of the loop framework, I want to leave you with this challenge. After this session is over, what I want you to do is go into your LMS or analytics dashboard. I want you to pull up, let's say, the last 10 course completion. Any course, any team, doesn't matter. And then ask yourself, what happened next? Did the system do anything in response? Did they get a recommendation, a nudge, a follow-up path, or did the learning experience just end? That moment, right after a completion, is where personalization lives and dies. If your system isn't doing something after someone finishes a course, you're not closing the loop. You're just delivering content on your own timeline. Personalization is about a relationship, not a checklist, and relationships are built on what happens next. This quote right here pretty much sums up everything we've been working towards in the loop framework. Learning should not feel static. It shouldn't feel like something that was built once and never looked at again. If your role evolves, your learning should too. If you develop new interests, the system should notice. If you complete something, it should know what comes next. It should congratulate you for completing what you just completed and then prompt you to go to the next step. That's what the quote unquote personalized phase is all about. It's where the system and the learner are in an ongoing relationship, where learning adapts based on what's happening now, not just what's happening 3 months ago. So when learning feels like it's changing with you, it doesn't just become more effective. It becomes, in essence, it feels a bit more human. It feels like you've got a coach behind you, tapping you on the shoulder, like, hey, Justin, other people that are doing this, they've also completed this. Like, you might want to check that out. It just feels like it gives them that extra nudge of motivation. So how do we build the loop in your org? Well, now that we've broken down all the parts of the loop, listen, observe, offer, and personalize, you might be thinking, all right, it makes sense. I get it, dude. But like, where do I actually start doing this? The good news is you don't have to overhaul your entire learning ecosystem to make this work. You can start small with one team, one audience, one journey, doesn't matter. The best place to begin is with a learning initiative that already has visibility or has some urgency attached to it. Think about onboarding, manager development, compliance, or product training. These are often the areas where learners are already giving you strong signals, either through feedback, behavior, or by noticeable performance gaps. So you start by building a way to listen. That might be one of those short intake surveys, could be a self-assessment, or it could just be an open-ended question that asks what the learner hopes to get out of this experience. Then when you get that information back, especially those open-ended responses, that's when you can take that aggregate data, put it into something like an AI-based tool, and then tell it to tell you what it's saying. That's where you want to use these tools, is to get more insight into the information that you're getting back, because it can give you insight a lot faster than you going through each individual response and then tabulating the correlations between all of them. Once you've done that, observe. Make sure you're looking beyond completions and test scores. It's not that those things aren't valuable and that they don't tell you anything, but I want you to start tracking what people are spending time on, what they're searching for, and ultimately where they're dropping off. Because I think drop-offs actually tell you a lot more than completions, because anybody can sit there and click through a compliance training and get to the end. We've all done it. We've all sat there, we put the volume on low, and we just click the button as soon as we see we're able to click the button. And at the end of the day, it's done, and we get a gold star for completing our homework. But what about the courses that people self-enroll in because they're interested in something, but then they don't get to the end? What does that tell you about that content? They were interested enough to look at it. They were interested enough to enroll in it, but they weren't interested enough to complete it. Where'd they drop off? Did they drop off in the middle of a quiz? Did they drop off after a really long text block? What is it? What is creating that friction? And then what I would do is if you have a course or a module that has a consistent drop off point, you should reach out proactively to the learners, give them a survey. Why did you drop out of this? What is causing you friction here? And then use that data to readjust that particular module or that particular learning path, whatever it is, to remove that friction. Because ultimately, that's how you get people to go through all the way to the end, is you remove the friction points. Finally, you offer up something that builds on those insights. That could be a follow-up course, a resource bundle, a curated learning path that feels specific to whatever it is they're getting into. And then once you give them the offers, you have to continuously personalize. The personalized step is not actually a step. It's a loop back to the beginning. It's not just about automating what comes next, but it's about giving a learner a way to influence their own experience. Let them explore, let them save content, let them shape what happens after they engage, but then repeat your process over and over as you go through each individual team, path, whatever it is that you're auditing using this system. Continue to do it. It should be a continuous loop. Over time, you'll find that the loop doesn't just improve learner outcomes, it also makes your content strategy smarter. You'll see patterns, you'll spot gaps, and you'll be able to design with intention, not just instinct. And the beauty of the loop is that it scales with you. Whether you're a team of one or a global L&D operation, these principles apply across the board. It's not about having the most advanced tech anymore. It's about building better habits around listening, watching, responding, and evolving. So let's move over here and we're going to do our one and only official poll. So which loop stage do you feel needs the most improvement in your organization? So we're going to give you a few seconds to respond here, but just let me know. Are you struggling with listening to learners? Are you having trouble tracking behavior, offering up that relevant, timely content, or are you having trouble closing the loop? What are the main things that you are struggling with?
I'll give everybody about 10 more seconds.
Sounds good.
And with that, here are those results.
Right. Okay. So tracking learner behavior is a big one, 38%. Then we've got building personalized feedback loops at 33, and offering relevant timely content at 20, and listening to learner goals at 10. So I totally understand a lot of this. Tracking the learner behavior is a big one. Oftentimes that's going to be platform dependent, right? And so if your platform is not offering you a way to meaningfully track behavior, or if you're not able to integrate, you know, extra add-ons that allow you to track learner behavior more easily, then my suggestion would be to start auditing the system overall and like, do we need to make a change here? Because learner behavior is one of the most important things that you can do, is one of the most important things that you have to track in order to be able to personalize these things. In terms of building those personalized feedback loops, I totally get that as well. I think as the technology starts to catch up with the needs, learning and development, you know, as tech forward as it is, because we all hear it every day. There's AI this, AI that every single day. We're still not at a point where AI is actionable in this way completely yet. We will get there. I think it'll be the next 3 to 5 years, but I think we'll get there. But once that happens, that part will become a little bit more easy. Right now, what you'll have to do is you'll have to take a lot of this data and then put it into an AI to, you know, download it, understand it, parse it, and then you can use that to adjust your recommendations on the fly. But many of the systems that are out there can do things like those automated learning plans and you know, recommendations and things like that. So if you have a system that's able to do that, turn them on, you know, try them out, all that kind of stuff, as much as you can. All right, let's move on here, and we're going to do some key takeaways, and then we're going to get into some Q&A. So we've covered quite a bit today. We've covered quite a bit of ground in the last 40-ish minutes. I want to leave you with a few key takeaways here, something to hold on to as you head back into your everyday work. First, learner curiosity is everywhere, You don't have to manufacture engagement. You just have to pay attention to the signals. Your learners are already giving you all of that information, what they search for, what they click on, what they skip, what they come back to. These are all moments of insight. It's all a conversation that they're having, whether you know it or not. You just got to pay attention. Second, personalization is not a feature or a setting. It's a mindset. It's about designing a learning system that listens and observes, responds, and evolves. It's about meeting people where they are and nudging them to get where they're going. Third, the loop framework gives you a clear, actionable path where you don't have to be perfect at every stage. Just start. Just start somewhere. Start by listening better. Start by looking at your data you already have. Start by making one thoughtful offer that feels like it was meant for the learner. And then just build it from there. You know, Rome wasn't built in the day, as the cliche goes. Neither is a fully personalized learning plan. And finally, the technology is here to support you. Tools like ALM, Adobe Learning Manager, like I work on, they're built to scale these efforts through AI-powered recommendations, smart automations, and real-time learning plans that respond to behavior and business needs. So, as you think about what your next big initiative is, whether it's onboarding, reskilling, leadership development, I want you to ask yourself, where can we listen better? Where are we ignoring learner behavior? And how can we close the loop to make this feel more personal, more relevant, or more human? That doesn't have to be some big fancy automated thing, but you just need to start creating the feeling of personalization, even if real personalization is a little bit further down the road. So as we cruise into Q&A, I think people have hopefully popped some questions in there. I'll get to that in a second. Here's a QR code. If you want to give Adobe Learning Manager a try, again, that's the product I work on. You can try it here free for 30 days. This deck will be available after the session as well. So you can scan it here or you can get it from there. I'll give you a few seconds to do that. But 30-day trial for free. You get in there and you can try out all of those things I was talking about, the AI recommendations, all of that stuff on the homepage, the learner plans that are personalized based on all those trigger events, etc. So, get in there. And if you have any questions about it along the way, you can connect with me directly. Again, I'm Justin Seeley. I'm the evangelist for Adobe Digital Solutions, specifically ALM, Adobe Learning Manager. And here you can scan that QR code. It'll take you to my LinkedIn page. I also give away a ton of resources and templates there. I will throw out a very big caveat that I had a piece of content go semi-viral recently, and my inbox is a little flooded at the moment. So if you do message me there, I will get back to you. I promise. It is just really backlogged at the moment, and I'm trying to get through them all. I do a lot of free PDFs and things like that, and people are asking for them all the time. So I will answer your question. It just might not be immediate, but I will get to you. So with that said, Liz, I'm going to open it up for Q&A. I will stop sharing.
Copy that. No, I love that transparency. And I love that photo. I'm exposing myself that I did not look at your deck entirely. That photo was amazing. I love it.
Thank you.
So taking it way back to kind of the beginning, Gilbert was wanting more context about the Microsoft example, and specifically, what was that Microsoft example that you gave?
Sure. So it's the Microsoft Expert Zone. And let's see if I can just pull it up. Let's share this really quick. And here and here. So this is the Microsoft Expert Zone. It's expertzone.microsoft.com. And what you do is you sign in or join with your Microsoft account. And once you do that, one of the first things that they ask you is like, what are the Microsoft related products, services, and things like that you are interested in? So some of it's like Office based, some of it is Xbox based, some of it is Microsoft Education based, all these different things. You choose all of those things, and then they use that information and what you go to while you're on the site and all this kind of stuff to fully curate a learner homepage for you that is completely personalized. And it actually runs on Adobe Learning Manager. So this is also a great example of the product that I was talking about. But the personalization aspect of this is really the shining star. So if you want to, just go again, expertzone.microsoft.com. And you should be able to go right there.
Perfect. I hope that answered your question, Gilbert. The next one, and I know you kind of touched on this, but it was quite a bit of questions about what if our LMS doesn't allow for such an analytics? How can you track usage data and present curated content with generic platforms? We have generic platforms. We don't have
Yeah.
the budget. Justin, help, pretty much.
Totally understand it. So if you have any type of analytics whatsoever, I assume maybe you have basic analytics. Maybe it's not at the learner level, but maybe it's at the aggregate level. I would just try to see any way forward that you can with what you have to identify potential bumps or potential home runs, right? It's not just about what doesn't work, it could be about what actually does work. So if you have something that, let's say you launched it and you gave people 30 days to complete it, but everybody completed it in like the first 2 weeks, what does that tell you? That tells you that might be really interesting, really easy, friction free. Look at that and then compare it to something where people went over the deadline or they didn't finish it at all. What are the differences between the two? Is one more video heavy? Is one more interactive heavy? Maybe you can use some of that and then also create a survey based on that and say like, hey, we've been noticing some observations about our content. We would like to get your opinion. The more input you can give or get, excuse me, from the learners, the better off you're going to be. So there are ways to communicate, hopefully, with your learners if they're within your system, they're your employee, your customer, whatever it is. So communicate with them as often as possible in any way you can. There are free form tools and things like that that you can use, Google Forms, Microsoft Forms, all those kind of things. Use all that, take that info in, and then try to apply it to your system. If you don't have those in-depth analytics. And I know that's a pain. I've totally been there. I've gone to places with legacy, systems, and it's a huge pain in the butt. If you want more information about some of the things that I've done, I have a playbook that I have somewhere. I'll have to dig it up, but I do have a playbook for all levels of, I have nothing, I have something, I have a lot, that kind of thing. So if you want to email me or send me a message, I can get you that information.
Perfect. I hope that addressed everybody. If not, please keep dropping more questions in the chat. The next one, Jody, how do you personalize and collect/observe data on employee behavior when building business-centric training? Not just what they learned, but what the organization needs to know.
Um, I think that depends on the capabilities of the system, and then also, whatever your business objectives are. So let's take a sales training, for example, right? So you want to train your sales force to do something, implement a new sales strategy, sell a specific product or something like that. What you can do is incorporate, and this is difficult if you don't have a system that does it, but there are ways around it. So let's say you have a system that can do like an interactive simulation to test sales skills or something like that. That's ultimately what I would love to have in every system, right? A way to do some sort of verifiable skills challenge. If you don't have that, then I think what you would have to do is create some sort of assessment mechanism or a survey that digs deeper beyond just the overall analytics that you get to really understand if or to really get an understanding of what they're understanding. And then finally, I would make sure that you loop in their managers, their regional team managers, whoever that is, and get them to give you information about behavior changes. So are they seeing that people are implementing this? Are they not seeing that they're implementing this? And if they're not implementing it, where are they falling short? And you can use all of that to hopefully correlate some trends and get some information that way.
Perfect. And then I did have a question in the chat about the Microsoft link, if you could share that
Yeah,
again in the chat, they would love
got
that.
it.
And then I did leave Alyssa's questions for the last, because she kind of had four. So we're gonna kind of all similar, but kind of different. Um, no apologies, Alyssa, at all. Can Adobe Learning Manager interface with a CRM? How is ALM categorized registrants? That was kind of two in one, but yes.
Yeah, so it definitely can engage with a lot of CRMs. We have a very robust API, so we integrate with some natively out of the box, right? I don't know the full list off the top of my head, but we do integrate with a lot of them out of the box. The rest of them can probably be integrated with through our extensive APIs, and we have solutions consultants and people like that that can help, drive that integration. In terms of how they're categorized when they come in, I think that's ultimately up to you, like how you want them brought into the CRM or how you bring them into ALM from the CRM. I think that's totally up to you. It could be groups, it could be teams. There are lots of different ways to do that. So if you want to send me a more detailed scenario of what you're asking, I can definitely give you a little bit better guidance.
Perfect. Yes. And it kind of sounds like it because she then asked if we have the Adobe Enterprise license. Is the ALM feature included already?
I
Uh,
assume you mean Creative Cloud. The answer to that is no. So Adobe Creative Cloud and Adobe Experience Cloud are two different things. So I sit on a side of the business that's called DX, Digital Experience, and then the other part is CC, Creative Cloud. So it's a different platform altogether. It's where we have things like our marketing suite, email, Captivate, the e-learning authoring tool, and all that. That kind of sits over there in its own cloud environment.
Perfect. And she did have a couple more questions, but I know we are out of time, but kind of on the same reel. So Alyssa, I'm assuming you'll reach out to Justin
Yes,
afterwards.
please do. Please do.
So with that, Justin, before I guide us to the next session, is there anything else you'd like to say with the audience today before you say your goodbyes?
Just thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with me. There's my LinkedIn in the chat one more time. I'll also send you the link if you want to try ALM or if you have any specific questions about that. I'm more than happy to answer it as well. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time out of your day. I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, love the positivity you bring to each session. Thank you so much, Justin. So for everyone else, though, we will be taking that 14 minute break as mentioned. As always, up next, we do have Adam and Nolan from InfoPro Learning for their session, Intelligent Personalization at Scale. So again, in just a moment, I am going to end this session and you can return to the event lobby and go into session tab. I hope you all stick around for our next session, which begins at the top of the hour. I will see you all soon. Bye, everybody.